Well, it's that lying Caroline Levitt again. Hmm. All right, this is the briefing at the White House today. It's the briefing with our resident lying Caroline Levitt. Okay? And I want you to listen to her closely. Okay? Because this wasn't just scheduling announcements. This turned into something much bigger. Immigration numbers, Epstein questions, a cabinet secretary admitting he visited Epstein's island, Lutnick, and then a full pivot to why aren't you asking about our wins? This is what she said. Why you ain't asking us why we ain't winning? What's going on? Watch how she rolls with this stuff. Listen to her.
Recent winter storm, which impacted hundreds of millions of Americans. The president will discuss how clean, beautiful coal is not only keeping the lights on in our country, but also driving down the cost of electricity across the country as well. Additionally, on Thursday, President Trump will be joined by Administrator Lee Zeldin to formalize the rescission of the 2009 Obama-era endangerment finding. This will be the largest deregulatory action in American history, and it will save the American people $1.3 trillion in crushing regulations. The bulk of the savings will stem from reduced costs for new vehicles, with the EPA projecting average per vehicle savings of more than $2,400 for popular light-duty cars, SUVs, and trucks.
Okay. Whenever you hear her, whenever you see her mouth moving, you know she's lying. But let's continue with something else. Whenever you hear $1 trillion savings number, slow down. That doesn't mean $1 trillion is landing in your bank account. It means projected regulatory costs over time are being rolled back. Now, here's the real issue. They're talking about rescinding the 2009 endangerment finding. That finding is what allows the federal government to regulate greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act. If that goes away, climate regulations shrink dramatically. Supporters say that lowers vehicle costs and energy costs. Critics say it weakens environmental protections and long-term climate safeguards. But here's the key political point. They're reframing it or framing the deregulation as cost relief. They want voters to think less regulation equals cheaper cars and lower electricity bills. Question is, will people actually feel those savings? Or is this theoretical? That's what matters in elections. Let her continue.
National Institute of Health tomorrow, with children, families, and NIH staff involved in clinical trials. In other news this week, thanks to President Trump signing the largest middle-class tax cut in history, this is shaping up to be the biggest tax refund season ever, and we are in it now. President Trump and Republicans fundamentally believe that Americans deserve to keep more of their hard-earned money, not less, which is why he fought so hard to deliver this long overdue relief. From no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security, to auto loan interest deductions on new American-made vehicles, plus increases to the standard deduction in child tax credit, more money is flowing back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. We're already hearing from everyday Americans across the country who are reporting substantial tax savings thanks to the Working Families Tax Cut, which every single Democrat in Congress voted against.
Okay, y'all already know half of that stuff don't even equal what you got going on. First of all, you ain't buying no car because you ain't got no money. You don't work for tips. All of these things are individually taken and they don't help a group of, it doesn't help enough people. Enough said. This is messaging. It's humanized. It's anecdotal. It's powerful because it's personal. But here's what viewers need to understand about the way these people talk. Refunds don't always mean you paid less tax. Sometimes it means your withholding changed. Sometimes credits shift. tax policy is complicated. Now, that doesn't mean people didn't benefit. Some absolutely did. But when you hear largest middle-class tax cut in history, that's a claim that deserves scrutiny. And we don't know whether that's true or not. She moving her lips, that means she's lying. What's permanent? What expires? Who benefits the most? And how does it impact the deficit long term? If people feel more money in their pockets, that helps the administration politically. If prices are still high, tax relief won't outweigh grocery bills. It ain't going to work.
Questions? Caroline Downey from the National Review is here. Thank you for being here, and why don't you kick us off?
Thank you for having me. On the criticism that immigration enforcement has become arbitrary or not particularly prioritizing, Democrats have been circulating this statistic that only 14% of illegal aliens arrested under this administration are violent criminals. But we know that in deep blue cities with progressive district attorneys, it's common to plead down serious violent crimes into less serious offenses, which could be distorting those numbers. So given that backdrop, does the administration still stand by the messaging that you're targeting the worst of the worst? And does this prevailing narrative tell the whole story?
Well, thank you for bringing this up, Caroline. I've seen this CBS report floating around. There's a lot of liberal talking heads and pundits and Democrat elected politicians who think that this single story and these statistics and the way they are painted is somehow a shot at this administration. It is not. And let me correct the record. Number one, the Trump administration has been clear from day one that any illegal alien present in this country is subject to deportation. However, the priority, of course, is going after the convicted criminals, the worst of the worst, the murderers, the pedophiles, the rapists in this country. Interestingly, in the CBS story, what the Democrat talking heads on television are not saying is this line. Nearly 60% of ICE arrestees over the past year had criminal charges or convictions. And among that population, the majority of the criminal charges or convictions are for nonviolent crimes. Oh, well, what are nonviolent crimes, you ask? This has coincided with what DHS has been saying all along, that approximately 70% of illegal aliens arrested under President Trump have pending criminal charges and or prior convictions. And these so-called nonviolent crimes, drug trafficking, distribution of child porn, burglary, fraud, DUI, embezzlement, solicitation of a minor, and human smuggling, just to name a few. So,
see, she says 70% have pending charges or prior convictions, but then clarifies many of those are nonviolent crimes: drug trafficking, fraud, DUI, child exploitation, human smuggling. Now, here's where nuance matters. Nonviolent doesn't mean harmless. DUI kills people. Drug trafficking destroys communities. Fraud wipes out savings. But critics are arguing the administration promised to focus on violent criminals first. And when only 14% are categorized as violent offenders, that creates a messaging gap. Are you just going to get anybody, violent or non-violent? Are you focusing on violent like y'all said y'all was? Apparently y'all ain't focusing on violent because y'all only got 14%. What the administration is saying is simple. Illegal status alone is enough. That's what they're saying. It don't matter whether it's violent or non-violent. We just going to pick up anybody who got any kind of offense, and any kind of offense to them is crossing the border. Criminal history just increases the priority. So the debate isn't whether criminals should be deported. It's whether enforcement is broadening beyond what voters were led to expect. That's the real argument underneath all of this.
I was hoping you can clarify something that's come up over the last several days, again, regarding a separate topic in the Epstein files. According to newly released files, the president had a conversation with the Palm Beach police chief in the early 2000s, according to the police chief in 2019. The president had gone on record before, and he's told reporters that he said that that he had no idea about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. During this conversation with the police chief, however, he did say, according to this recounting of it, that thank goodness you're stopping him. He also called Ghislaine Maxwell evil. So my two questions are, did that conversation with the Palm Beach police chief happen? And can you explain the discrepancy?
What I will say is that the president has always remained consistent and that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club at Mar-a-Lago because, frankly, Jeffrey Epstein was a creep. And unlike many other people who are named in these files, President Trump cut off his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and was honest and transparent about that for years and years. And so I think what the president has said all along has always remained true. And the release of more than 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous, disgusting crimes just shows the level of transparency that this president and administration has committed to in bringing these files to light.
But did he call the chief in 2006? Caroline, did he call the chief?
Look, it was a phone call that may or may not have happened in 2006. I don't know the answer to that question. What I'm telling you is that what President Trump has always said is that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, and that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning.
This is where things get uncomfortable for you, girl. If she moving her lips, she lying, she lying. The reporter asked about a phone call with the Palm Beach police chief in the early 2000s. She doesn't confirm that it happened. She says it may or may not have happened. That's not a clean denial. Then she pivots to the standard lying line. He kicked Epstein out of his club because he was a creep. Nobody believes that. Nobody. Now, here's the problem politically. When there are inconsistencies about timelines, phone calls, or who knew what, when, and why, even small discrepancies keep the story alive. And then you add in the fact that documents are being released. Oh, Lord. Oh. Every time new material drops, the press asks again. And the president, it becomes more and more apparent that the president is lying about something. This is not going to go away just because the White House says we're moving on. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Let's continue.
Thinking about. Go ahead, Bloomberg.
Thanks, Caroline. Secretary Litnick today was testifying on the Hill, and he said that he had visited Epstein's Island in 2012 with his wife and children, and that's after he said that he had cut ties with Epstein, and the Justice Department documents show that he was in contact with Epstein through 2018 over messages. So does the White House stand behind Secretary Litnick right now, or given what he has said today, has there been any shift in how the White House is viewing Secretary Litnick's performance?
No, Secretary Litnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary. I will just point out that there are a lot of wins in the news this week that people in this room have not asked about because you continue to ask questions about the same subject. So let me point them out for you again.
We don't need to hear them. We don't need to hear them. They're only wins in your mind. This is significant. A cabinet secretary testifies he visited Epstein's Island in 2012 with his family after ties were supposedly cut, after it was well known and documented that Epstein was a criminal. The White House says he remains fully supported. Here's why this matters. The Epstein story isn't about one person anymore. It's about a network of degenerates, I'll say. The social circles, I'll say. The powerful structure around him, I'll say. Every time a new name surfaces, people ask the same questions. How many people knew? Who stayed connected? Who distanced themselves? When? Even if no crime is alleged in that specific visit with Litnick, politically, it keeps the story burning.
And on Friday, the Dow shattered 50,000 for the first time ever. This week, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons came out in opposition to gender mutilation surgeries for children. They are the first major medical group to do so. A federal appeals court today, nobody asked about that, just upheld the Trump administration's policy of detaining illegal aliens, validating the strong measures that have driven illegal crossings to historic lows, and sent a crystal clear message that under President Trump, if you enter the country illegally, you will be detained and removed. The murder rate, again, not a single question about this, has plunged to a 125-year low as crime falls across the board, thanks to President Trump's crime crackdown. We also saw this week national median rents have fallen to a 4-year low following 6 consecutive monthly declines, and mortgage affordability has surged to a 4-year high. Home ownership is the core foundation principle of the American dream, and I will repeat that mortgage affordability this week surged to a 4-year high, but not a single of mention of that in this briefing room today.
This was the pivot. When questions get uncomfortable for her, she pivots to win. She pivots to the wins. Stock market highs, border crossings, murder rate low, rents falling. That's a classic communication strategy. Redirect to positive metrics. Now, here's the truth. Multiple things can be happening all at once, okay? Markets can rise while political controversies simmer. Border crossings can fall while enforcement tactics are debated. What she's doing here is saying, why are you focusing on Epstein instead of the crime rates? And that's the tension in this administration. Strong economic and border numbers on one side, lingering character and association questions on the other. And the voters will decide which one weighs heavier every election that comes out from here until November 2026.